Well, it is a really great honour for me to be able to speak to the wonderful Ashleigh Dallas, who is such an esteemed artist, singer-songwriter, all sorts of things. Ashleigh, lovely to see you.
I'm excited to chat with you. So thanks so much for this. It'll be great.
It's my absolute pleasure. And I'm going to start by saying congratulations on your 2 Golden Guitar nominations, one for Female Artist of the Year and one for CMT Video of the Year. Of course, it's February at the moment. Ordinarily, the awards would have been awarded, but you're still a nominee. So that's really exciting.
We're hanging on to the top 5 nominee spot for a little bit longer here. So yeah, look, it was funny because obviously in January we were sort of prepping, thinking that the festival's going ahead, and we're so close to finding out, and then now we've got to wait. Oh well.
But I imagine there's a certain amount of anticipation. And of course, the festival was only postponed a week before it was due to begin. So for artists building up, rehearsing, all those sorts of things, thinking about, there was the 50th anniversary show was a huge thing to pull together. So do you feel like the wave is starting to crest and then you have to go, oof?
Yeah, it's weird. It felt like it kind of felt like after festival had already been, like, because
Right.
you run on adrenaline for any event, and then after it's finished I always come crashing down. Like, so when they had to make the decision to postpone, it was just this lull. Like, and I must admit, I live in Tamworth, and that week following that announcement, the street felt so strange.
Oh,
It was so eerie, even like it just felt sad.
right.
And so I even avoided going into town for a day or two because I was just like, oh my goodness, everyone's feeling it. It's not just us artists, it's not just the fans, it's the whole entire town as well.
Yeah.
So and then we do joke as well now. As you mentioned, CMT video clip with Luke O'Shea for Long Way Round, and I'm expecting my second bub in mid-year June. So I'm like, I really am going to be the long way round in April.
Boom, boom.
So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, when the announcement happened, I thought of the townspeople, all the businesses that would have been gearing up, ordering food, all those sorts of things, getting extra staff on. I mean, I know that a big consideration would have been the capacity of the hospital to be able to handle COVID cases, and that was a good reason to postpone it. But it is a big deal. Hopefully in April, the weather's a bit cooler. That will encourage maybe even more people to come.
Yeah, I think it will be, it's obviously going to be very different to what we're all used to with our typical Tamworth heat and being in the hype of the new year. But April's a beautiful time in the region as well, and I just think it's so exciting still that we haven't lost the event. It's just moved, and it's so nice to see the continued lineup of shows getting announced, and so many people still able to put on a show and enjoy the 50th year of the Tamworth Festival. So we're looking forward to it.
And the Golden Guitar's taking place not on a Saturday night for probably the first time ever.
I know, and it's actually my birthday that they're on. So I'm like, it's going to be like, it could be a really good night, or or maybe not. But no, it's yeah, that will be interesting. But again, it's just nice that they can still happen, and we can be together as an industry and celebrate each other's success. I think anyone who's still been able to release music, and not even just release music, but keep their head above water in these last few years, is everyone deserves a pat on the back.
Yeah. Now, you are a special type of Golden Guitar nominee because you not only have 2 Golden Guitars already, but you are you are the 3rd generation winner in your family. Your grandfather Rex has one, your father Brett has one, or probably more than one, but they are winners. So given that you probably did not have a choice about being a musician, was there ever a point in your life where you thought, no, I don't want to do this caper?
Not really, no. I remember as a little girl just thinking that was exactly how I wanted to live my life, was playing music, and everyone kind of, I remember when I started to break into the industry as a teen, people were like, oh, it's just because obviously your family want you to do it. And I'm like, no, obviously they're so supportive, but I could have turned around and said I want to be a dentist, and I'm sure it would have shocked them, but they would have been just as supportive. But I love music. It's been my go-to ever since I was little. I've always been a person who wrote in diaries, like, as little poems and little songs, and it's always been my way to express. And it's the same whenever I'm personally needing to deal with something, I go and listen to music to have that outlet as well. So I feel very fortunate that I can carry the third generation flag for our family. And people now with Harriet like saying, oh, is she going to be? I'm like, I don't know. If she wants to, the door is there. The baton can be passed on. But if not, yeah, I'm just excited to see where we all end up.
Yeah. You probably don't even remember your first performance. I imagine there were so many performances when you were a child.
Yeah, well, it was just so natural to be around stage and just to be up there. Like I remember there's videos of me and my brother both at my brother and I are 7 years apart, so he was ready for a little mate. But there's the same videos of us about 2 and 3 just standing on stage, just because we were more comfortable just standing there on stage than waiting. And so like we've always just been around on it. And I remember playing, I think, look, there's videos of me with a guitar in my hand from about 4. But if you zoom in closely, some of the guitars don't have leads in them, and I know why, because it would have been terrible. But I think about age 6 to 7, I started to recite poetry on live shows, and then that turned into a 3-song set, and then each year I kind of extended, and then I took over the family band when I was 13, 14.
So when you say took it over, did you just announce that that's what you were doing?
I had a discussion with Dad at the time. There was a few family members that stepped back from playing as well, and Dad kind of wanted to look at the new way that it would move forward, and I stepped in. I was in the band playing fiddle and singing harmonies, but took it over, and we became the Ashleigh Dallas band and then I started releasing my first EPs when I was about 15, 16, and kept Dad in the band, kept my brother in the band, so there was no bad blood.
Well, I remember when you were probably not much past that age, Casey Chambers talking about meeting you, and no wonder the two of you understood each other, because of course she had her father and brother involved in her musical life as well, because it is obviously not a unique situation given the two of you have it, but it's an almost unique situation.
Yeah, I never realised until I got to high school how unique our family structure was. And I guess it's just too, because we live in each other's pockets as a family, but also business is family as well. So when I met Casey and was able to go under her wing and go out on the road, and it was a massive deal. It was my first thing I'd ever done, stepping away from my family. But at the same time, I felt so comfortable because I was in another family situation, as you mentioned. And I started touring with Case when I was 17, and I finished up with her when I was 21. So it was a beautiful time being able to understand as well, like how another family ran multiple facets under their own, esteem, but each one was still so individual.
Yeah. I mean, growing up in that kind of environment where it's a family band, you have multiple generations who've played music. I don't know how hard it would be to forge your own musical identity within that. But by the time you released your first album, Dancing with a Ghost, in 2014, you were a fully formed artist. Like, that's not obviously it wasn't the work of a newcomer because you had an extensive history, but it certainly sounded like you had an identity. So did you, the time you took over that family band, were you clear about what sort of songs you wanted to write and perform?
I feel like I've always had a pretty clear understanding of who I wanted to be as a songwriter, and I think that's because I write very personal as well. I think I never sat down early on either and was like, oh, I want a song that sounds like this. It was more just I wrote a song because I needed to, and it just sounded like my song because it was for my own kind of, I guess, expression and therapy. And my family really helped with that, even though I think the pressure, once it was after I released Dancing with a Ghost, I kind of went in my own spiral with mental health and anxiety. And it wasn't ever because I felt the pressure put on me from other people. It was my own pressure that I was building up in my own head. And thinking that I had to, really fly a flag individually. And if I'd made a mistake, God forbid I make a mistake,
right.
I carried that for everyone.
Right.
and that's where the pressure came. And I think in that kind of period, it was my early 20s, I guess, where I really started to get in my head about writing. And we released Other Side of Town, which was a very successful record still. But I feel like that was my record where I was least in it, in my own space. And then Lighthouse really came back to being grounded, like I felt in Dancing with a Ghost.
Yeah, I think from the start of Lighthouse, it does feel like you're really present. You know, the very first song, it's like, oh, okay, she's here in the room with us.
Yeah, and I really felt that in the recording as well. Whereas Other Side of Town, I'm proud of that record, and it did everything it needed to at the time. But that whole record release around Other Side of Town, I took on an apprenticeship with hairdressing because I didn't know if I needed something else more secure instead of just chasing my music dream. And that was my first kind of, well, it was my only official trade. I finished school at year 11 to go out onto the road with Case. So I feel like that part of my life was where I was finding my feet again.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Lighthouse, I felt really present in what I wanted to portray with my songs. And I feel like I was writing again for me, for everything about that. And that's how it's continued on, just more stronger even since I've had my daughter. I feel like that again made me go, just keep doing you, like keep doing the things that feel good for yourself. And you might not have the biggest audience, but you've got an audience and they care. Yeah. And that's how I just kept momentuming forward.
Yeah. And I guess just to talk briefly about those mental health struggles you mentioned, the same, I don't want to say perfectionistic tendencies, but I think with musicians there can be a bit of obsession and perfectionism because you want to be the best, you want to keep practicing, and that's the nature also of learning instruments and being a singer. But those slightly perfectionistic tendencies that make you great at what you do probably make you more vulnerable to second guessing what you're doing because it's never going to be quite perfect enough. So it's a very tricky thing because it's a push and pull, and I suppose you have to find the balance, but there might always be that thought of, I don't want to let my standards drop because, you know.
Yeah. And you've hit the nail on the head. I am a classic, and it runs deep in our family on both sides as well, of being perfectionists. Right. And practice and going over things. And then I'm a classic overthinker. And that balance in, about my 21 to about 23, my balance was just completely off. And I think too, I didn't, like, even when I was on tour, I didn't listen to my body as well. I didn't do, when I got home from tours, I was just go. And I was what I thought you needed to do as well to keep things continually moving, was that you didn't stop.
Right.
And so I got quite sick as well. I had like glandular fever, which turned into fatigue and all of those things. So I think when I finally listened and admitted to my folks and to my partner that I actually have some struggles that I need to overcome, and it was me making all the hurdles so much harder.
Right.
But with that, you have to be vulnerable and let it go a little bit of pride. And struggled with that for a little while.
Well, it's not easy, you know, because it's the admission to those nearest and dearest to you. You don't necessarily know how they're going to respond, so you have to be really brave as well.
Yeah, exactly right. And you feel like, I guess my thing, I always felt like people did expect a standard from me coming from the Dallas family, and I think that's, again, it was my own struggle with that going, oh, well, I've just won a golden guitar. Now, what do I have to do now to keep up with the expectation? And, oh, Pop's got 4, so he did really successful things and managed a family into it. So how do I, and that was my thought process. Instead of just stopping, breathing and being present in what an achievement that is. Be proud. Doesn't matter what happens next. You did that. That's cool. Whereas now I've got much better at that. The balance for me, I can realize the things I need in my personal world to help also the professionals balance in. And when it tops, I go, okay, hang on. So I actually have learned something.
Well, and one of the things you might have learned also is the having fun part of it. And certainly this is my way of introducing the subject of your CMT Video of the Year nominated video with Luke O'Shea, Long Way Around, because it looked like a lot of fun to make, but you're wearing the same clothes in many different locations. And so when I watched it, I've thought, what are the logistics of that? Because in certain sections also it's been edited, so it looks like you're seamlessly moving in particular ways. And I was thinking, what was the storyboarding like? How did they pull that off? So was it fun to make, or did it get quite stop-start?
No, it was incredibly fun to make. In fact, it was probably one of the most fun film clips I've ever been involved in, to be honest. And so much, other than our steps being rehearsed and choreographed and obviously to a routine, as for where we're going to shoot, in what locations, we left that up to the day. And I know that sounds crazy. We had an idea that we knew we were starting out at Nundle in beautiful, just outside of Tamworth, the New England region. And we knew we wanted to end on the other side of Tamworth. But as for what else we filmed in the middle of that, we just wanted to feel and drive past a place and go, that looks cool. Let's get out and do our weird, wacky dance in front of the cows. More of a nightmare for Jay Seeney, who edited and directed the clip, who had to make sure that he was so far away from us at each point of each take, so it looked the same. But we started shooting, I think 6 o'clock was our first video take, and about 8:30 at night. So one day, about 45 different locations.
And by then you were ready to never see that denim skirt again.
Yeah, well, at the minute, the denim skirt does not fit me. So
well, that's true.
I think Luke would have a better chance.
And I can imagine he would be quite fun to work with for a whole day's worth of filming.
Incredibly fun. And we've got a really, I feel very fortunate to have a beautiful friendship with Luke that again, it just happens so naturally. And you do, this industry, you meet, and cross paths, and it's always friendly and it's always great. But to be able to have to establish solid foundations and friendships with others is beautiful. And so when Luke asked me to be in part of the song, of course I was stoked. And then when we decided it would be a single, it was really hard to come home to the family and say I just spent 10 hours at work, because I was like, this is the best day.
Yes, he's quite cheeky. Having seen him perform live several times, he can spin a good yarn and he's very funny.
Oh, it made me laugh the first take, because obviously we danced, and in video clips you still got to sing, even though the audio will come over, and we got to the first take and he goes, have you done dancing and singing at the same time before? And I said, oh, a little bit, yeah, because I've had to do it live at a couple of line dance events. And he goes, oh. I said, have you practiced that? He's like, no, we'll be right, won't we? And I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be. And the first take would be full of bloopers, let me tell you that.
Yeah, it's not easy dancing and singing. Beyonce could tell you that, there's a lot going on.
There's a lot. So we're very simple, really.
Well, it is a great clip, so I'm not at all surprised it's been nominated. And that is one of the singles you have out in the ether at the moment, but you have 4 that you've released of your own. And the first was Good and Bad Days. And I think that describes the subjects of the songs you've released as a set, actually, in a way. So Couldn't Keep Up is about the hard things people go through. And then there is Joy in Lottery and Dancing in the Kitchen. So which was the first of those to be written?
Good and Bad Days, actually.
Oh, okay.
It was. And that was just an idea that I had, again, really accepting life in general, that you have good days, you have bad days. And when I've learned to accept anything bad, on whatever scale that is, I let it go a lot quicker. Whereas, young Ash would fester it and make it worse than what it was. So that was a really fun song. I co-wrote that over Zoom with Matt Scullion, and it felt like the perfect first single to set up where we're heading with this next record, which will be out later in the year as well, because it's a collection of songs that are just from the home level. I've been at home trying to do music, be a full-time mum, and we have good and bad days in parenthood, let me tell you.
And you mentioned line dancing in relation to the film clip, and I believe dancing in the kitchen you wrote because your line dance classes on a Friday night couldn't happen due to the pandemic. So you started dancing in the kitchen. Were you line dancing in the kitchen, or did you do other forms of dancing?
Both. I followed a couple of online instructors from Australia and also internationally, but Stephen Patterson and Madison Glover have done amazing things for the dance industry in Australia, and they took their classes online. So it wasn't, weird to walk into our house and see my iPad set up on the kitchen bench and me trying to learn new dances every week. And dancing's one of those things for me that's like my zen. It's my balance. I don't go to the gym. I'm not into, exercise other than put music on and let me have a boogie. So then naturally, as well as a family, it became Friday nights were like our unwind night. Often my hubby works away with his job. So he'd get home and we'd de-stress the week. And living with COVID has obviously put pressure on everyone. And it was at weeks as well where you go, oh, I feel really like weighted. I trying to plan a career around postponing shows and rescheduling and not feeling like you're doing enough. We'd switch the news off to reset, turn on music while we're cooking, and we kind of just ended up having these dance parties in our kitchen, just the three of us. And Harriet, our little girl, was and is still the only person I've seen convince my partner to dance willingly. I just found myself saying, how are we getting through lockdown? We're dancing in the kitchen.
Right.
And that's where the song idea came from, and hence why I really wanted it to be fun as well when we recorded it, because I think everyone's got to find joy. For me, it's, turn the ovens off, turn the music up and dance like no one's watching, because they're really not.
I think other people should take that up as a practice, because you can just have one song. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes or 30 minutes. It could just be 5 minutes.
Yep, exactly right. It could be, as you said, one song that you just let for 3.5 minutes, you just forget about everything else. And we really enjoyed those nights. We'd even plan our food around our playlists for some things. And, I felt sorry for our neighbours when it was barbecue night, because the speaker went out the back and we're just like around the barbecue, like, what are these people doing?
They're doing pandemic entertainment, basically. That's what that was.
Right.
Well, it sounds like that was one of the ways you found a silver lining in the pandemic. And I think the song Lottery is a silver linings song as well. So it's obvious that you did look for those silver linings, and not only that, you've documented them. So it's almost like, well, it sounds like this album is going to be a document of that time for you.
I feel like it really is. And I've also, because of the environment of not being on the road as much, and we've worked on this record, we've released the singles, and as I said, it will be out this year, but I've still kept writing as well. And I've been in the song club run by Sam Hawksley, Aussie, out of Nashville, and I've been in that for over 20 weeks. So I've got another, 20 odd songs there that, some of them I was like, oh, I had to write because I had to get into a deadline. Whereas I looked through and I was like, that's a real Ashleigh Dallas song. I needed to say that. Right. So I'm quite excited about the two next records, really, to be honest with you, because I feel like it is just the role of life at the minute, and finding the glass half full at times is always been something I keep referring back to. So Lottery was one of those songs for me. Again, that was kind of written trying to juggle becoming a parent and with our jobs, both of us being away normally, and trying to just get that balance together. And we would say to each other, like, one day we'll win the lottery, and we could, be out on the road together, or we could be in a caravan and not worrying about, how we're going to pay the house mortgage, etc. And so that kept ticking over. But then I flipped it and I was like, well, we've kind of won the lottery though. We've got each other. We've got a roof over our head. We're healthy. We actually don't need all the material bigger things. It's not what life's lottery is. So I am excited about the stories from this next record, and it's exciting that we've been able to share little snippets and hopefully make people interested and keen to hear the next part.
Yeah, the only downside is you cannot call it the Song Club because Felicity Urquhart and Josh Cunningham got to that title first.
I know. And that's what sparked me. I'm like, what is this song club they're talking about?
Right.
And I've reached out to Sam and I said, oh, if you have a vacancy, I'd love to do it, because I found I'd written for the record that we're releasing this year, and I kind of went on a bit of a no writing, zone.
Mm-hmm.
So to re-enter that, where you have that deadline every Thursday night, the first 4 weeks, I have to tell you, so I was on fire. I was in like 24 hours easily before, like, here I am, I'm in, like, hello. And then about week 5, I'm like, I don't know what to write. Oh my goodness, it's 10 o'clock and it's midnight in 2 hours. So it was a really fun experience. And then I thought I'd hand up the pen in December and go, I think I'm out for a while. And then I got FOMO and I'm like, no, I need to keep going.
Well, and maybe you found you only need 2 hours to write a song.
Maybe. Some of them have surprised me again. I was like, wow, I could do that.
Well, yeah, there you go. Sam's onto something. Could become a bigger movement than it already is.
I think so. They're knocking down his doors, waiting.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things you're doing. You're recording music. You have some other things you're doing. I mean, of course, you're running a household and you are a mother. You're also an ambassador for Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. And I was reading that there has been a 100% take up of that program in Tamworth. I would suggest largely due to your involvement, but what is your role in that program?
Yeah, look, I absolutely love being able to talk about this. It naturally happened to become an ambassador because they launched the Dolly Parton Imagination Library in Tamworth, January 2019. That's when the council got everything over the line to get our little region on the map with the Imagination Library. And I welcomed Harriet that same month. So we were just so excited that we were able to go down to the library. I think she was 10 days old when we walked into our library to sign her up, and she got her own library card, bless her, and then became these recipients where it sees a child receive a gift of a book every single month up until the age of 5, and it's delivered to your door. Like it's, and they're beautiful books. They're all age specific. They've come with little handwritten notes as well that tell you the tips about the book and why this book's important. So it's a beautiful program. And we've signed up as ambassadors, which sees us doing book story time with local kids and local parents as well. And now it's sort of branched out that I work with the Sydney office as well, which is beautiful and fun. And we're just trying to spread the awareness and hope that other regional towns can get the funding or the support in their own region to have it there for their kids. Tamworth was a bit different because it was literally locally funded. It didn't have a major corporate sponsor from the city back it. It was our council that took the risk straight away. And since starting up in 2019, it's now local businesses that are coming in as well to make sure it stays here because they've seen the benefit of the program. So it's a really fun, beautiful thing to be involved in. And what better thing to keep encouraging, early childhood literacy and learning. And I've got to see it firsthand with Harriet. So I talk with a lot of joy about this program.
And Harriet would obviously have a great library already.
She has, yeah. Well, that was the first thing we realised. We're like, she's going to need a bookshelf just dedicated to the Imagination Library books because that's 60 books by the time she's 5. And we understand, and I understand that books are more accessible for everyone nowadays, and obviously pricing is very different, etc. But I think it was really important in that early newborn bubble when you're just, rolling through, am I doing this right? Or that's a weird noise, or that's a different cry. You did forget to kind of stop and take time to be present. And that reminder of a book arriving to your door was the thing we cherished every single month because it made us both go, just stop, go and read, go and feel something in your hands. Like, don't be worried about, is the kitchen clean? She's not going to worry about that. So it was that reminder for us that we really found so important. And then getting out into our local region, the wonderful thing that I've taken away from other families is that it's become a very generational experience for our families here, especially with our Indigenous culture and community, who the grandparents didn't have these sorts of books, and they're sitting down with their grandchildren now reading them and taking the time, and it's just so filled with community, this program, and that's why I think it's so special when a town supports the entire thing. So I'm very happy to lend my voice to it wherever I can.
So any towns who are interested, or town councils that are interested, can go to the Dolly Parton Imagination Library website, I'm sure, and find out information. Yeah. Great.
Absolutely. And the team there, they're all wonderful people. And hopefully I just, hope if there's I get many messages from people saying, I wish it was in my town. And I wish it was, I cannot wait to see the day where we have a map and it is in all parts of Australia, because it's a really beautiful program.
And another thing you're involved in, at least when it's operational, is the CMAA Academy, or the Academy as it's now known. Now, it didn't run this year because of the festival being postponed. And so this year's students will be taken over to next year. But when the Academy is running, what role do you have in it?
I've been really fortunate. I was a student myself. And that's how I met Casey, actually. Oh. So, I again talk very fondly about my time with Academy, but now I'm very fortunate that they take me back. Sometimes I'm a group leader, sometimes I'm just a guest songwriter or a mentor, but the last couple of years I've been a group leader for the senior and junior course, which has just been fabulous to immerse yourself into, the next lot of talent that's waiting to be heard and waiting to know what's the next step, and to be a small part of someone's journey and give back is something I always carry with a lot of pride. So I really encourage any music fans out there. Everyone's saying, what can we do while we're still in this kind of weird navigating period of our shows going ahead or are they not, to go out and try and still discover the new artists that are waiting to fill our iPods with new music galore, because they're the next things that keep all of this momentum rolling, and a rising tide for everybody is much better.
Yeah. I think the Academy has been so instrumental in the high quality of music that comes out of the Australian country music industry. I certainly can see the young artists I've covered who have been to the Junior Academy, then sometimes to the Senior Academy. It's a really wonderful, possibly unique professional development program, I think, the way it's run. Yeah.
It's again, when I think back of my own time there, like the amount of tools that you can add to your tool belt, it's kind of like there's no apprenticeship for music or being creative arts, etc. There's obviously different ways you can study and different facets you can really focus on, but to be able to absorb real knowledge from life experience as well, I think is just such an amazing thing for young students. And I look back on my time and I can look at the classmates that I had, and it's great when they release new music. You like get excited and you're like, oh, I remember us talking about this, 12 years ago, trying to dream this up. And the greatest thing I think with the Academy is that it's that blending together of the industry, where you meet people that you've looked up to and are inspirational, and then suddenly you're in a position where you're writing songs with them because you've connected. Mm-hmm. It's really fabulous what the team have done there. It's a huge hats off to the team there at the Academy.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, I've had you talking for a very long time. You no doubt have many other things to do. The latest single is Dancing in the Kitchen. It sounds like there will be some more soon, which is wonderful. Ashleigh, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I love chatting, but this honestly was just so easy to talk to you. So thank you so much for all the support and for this great talk. I really appreciate it.
It's genuinely my pleasure. Bye. Bye.